Hi quilters, how are you today? The next Quilts of Valor pattern we're making is going to feature the Lemoyne Star. It's a really classic design. It looks like a difficult star, but it's very easy to piece. There are no Y seams, and we're using some really beautiful batiks in red, white, and blue to put it together. I love batiks. The simple reason is you can't cut them wrong. Whether you use the right side or the wrong side, they all look the same. So if you have a complicated pattern that requires left and right shapes and you use batiks, it will eliminate you having pieces that are cut out going in the wrong direction because you can use either side. The design and layout we're going to use today is a simple one. We're doing red and white Lemoyne stars, and we're doing blue and white Lemoyne stars. And really the blue is just acting as an accent. We're going to make a bunch of red ones and a few blue ones and scatter them about. The key here is that there is sashing. There's white sashing and blue cornerstones to highlight each of the shapes, and it is just a lovely pattern. So let's go down to the design board. We'll show you the shapes and then how to put them together. This is the AccuQuilt die board, and this is the Lemoyne Star package. It's the 55453, a 9-inch finished Lemoyne Star, and this is the die board I'm going to be using. However, if you do not have the AccuQuilt cutting system yet, I do include rotary cutting directions showing you how to cut each of the shapes. And that is included in the back of the pattern. I've laid out all the pieces for the red, and I'm going to be making in this video, I'm going to make 3 red and 1 blue, just because the majority of the blocks are going to be red anyway, and I'm going to make a blue just so you can see the difference. They are sewn exactly the same way. Each of the blocks consists of 4 quadrants. This is exactly the same as this piece here. You have the 2 diamond shapes, you have the 2 small triangles and the 2 large triangles. And once you sew 1 quadrant together, you just make them and then 4 get pieced together. So let's look at the sewing directions. And the first thing we're going to do is sew these 2 pieces together. Then we're going to add this piece here. So we have a half. And then we're going to take this piece, sew it to this one, add this one, we have our other half, and then we're going to sew them together. And I'm going to make 4 blue because I'm making 1 block. I need 4 corners. And in the red, depending on how many blocks you're going to make, you're going to make 4 quarters for each block. I've stacked all my pieces because it doesn't matter if it's red or it's blue. The shape is the same and the sewing is the same. So I have my left sections and my right sections, which I'm going to sew into quadrants. And for now, I'm going to put the 1 set aside because I'm only going to sew 1 at a time. We're going to work on this. So the first thing I need to do is sew this and this together. So I'll set these triangles aside for now, and we'll go to the sewing machine. And I need to sew this on, and I would like to sew the smaller piece on top. So I'm going to turn them over, and I'm going to flip these because that's the way they need to be attached. I find if I flip the stacks and don't have to turn each one, I'm more likely to do it correctly. So I'm going to match up the pieces. I'm using white thread and a 1/4-inch foot. Needle down. I always like to start with my presser foot on the fabric, and I will just chain piece these together. And I like to match the bottom and then bring it forward this way, and I will gently, now if you noticed I've left the needle slightly on top of the fabric, and that's so that the presser foot doesn't drop down and I can slide this under. I'm using white thread, and the reason I do that, even though I have a lot of red, blue and red here, is because the white thread will not show up behind the white fabric. But if I were to use a blue or a red and not snip my threads completely, I could have like little ghosting marks under here. where the thread shows. So that's kind of one of my secrets of not having your thread show through the fabric if you forget to cut it. It's use the white, the lightest color in the scheme. So the majority of the stuff I sew is always going to be with white thread. And I will just continue string piecing these. And obviously if you're making the entire quilt, you will piece enough to make all the blocks you need. So I'm going to finish those and then we'll sew the next piece together. All right, this is the piece we just sewed. Now normally I would want to press to the dark side, but because we're going to be adding another piece and I really do want to have a nice point here, I'm going to press it out to the white side. The next piece is going to be added here. So I'm going to fold it over. And what I've decided is I really don't want to start from the corner because it's a double seam under there and it's easier to get caught. I always like to start at a flatter end, so I'm going to turn it over and sew from the back end, match up my bottom, and then put the top in and sew like this. Let's do another. I'm going to take it now. I'm not going to the ironing board. I'm only using my finger. You can also use a small little wooden tool if you want to press it in place. Here's my next piece. Now, the best way, rather than doing each of these individually and going like this and matching it up and turning it over, is to just make sure you keep laying them out in the same direction. And what I'm going to do is look at this and see that these need to be put like this in this direction. And that will help me. So match up the corner, bring it to the top, and let it go. I'll do one more here. Finger press it open. Make sure I lay it out the same way. Put one underneath. Match to the corner and sew. And here you go. And again, contrary to what I usually do, I will press this out to the white because I really want the perfect point here and throughout, and that's really going to help me. So these are all of the left side. I'm going to do all of those, and then we're going to do the right side. It's the same sewing, it's just opposite. This is the half we just completed, the red diamond with the two white sides, and next we're going to do the white diamond with the two colored sides. Now, obviously I'm not going to do blue on that, I'm going to do red, but I do have the blues stacked underneath, and I will sew those as well because it's the same exact piecing and this is the same color, so I'm good to go. I did decide to change my seams a little, and in this particular case, I decided to let both of them go down in this direction. One towards the white, one towards the red. And the reason I did that is because when I do these, I'm going to press these up. So when I fold these together, the seams will kiss on both sides and I will get perfect points on each of these sides. I will show you that when the time comes. But first, we're going to remove this, and we're going to sew these two pieces together just like that. So I'm going to position that, turn these backside out, and it really doesn't matter if I do the red or the blue first, as long as I'm consistent and then it's either all red or all blue. And again, simple 1/4 inch seam. We're just going to string piece them one at a time. Very easy, no stress. And here you go. That's the one piece. And as I said before, these were going that way, so these will go the other way. These will go in. But I'll show them to you when we're done. Right now, let's just worry about the sewing. So here we go. I'm going to string piece the rest of these. Just like that. I always like to keep them connected. I'm less likely to lose pieces that way. And I will join you back once these are done. And we need to sew our triangles on like this. So we'll flip them over, and this time we will start here. And just like that, now I'm going to look at this one. This one is down. This one, it's going to turn around the right way. There we go. So this one is towards the red, so this one is going to be the opposite way. Actually, they're both going to be to the red. It looks like I'm doing, these are both down, so these should be both up. So we'll put this one up here. So this way, when we put them together, the seams will be in opposite directions. And then they will kiss, just like this. Yeah. See? If you put them together and you slide them, the points will match up perfectly, and you'll get that really nice point. Just like that. Let's try one, shall we? Notice I'm holding that and I'm stopping right at the seam. And I'm just going to take this one, line it up. And this is 1/4 of our Lemoyne Star. And look at those points. And you really are never going to get that unless you can do the seams opposite. It just helps them butt against each other. I should say kiss. Kiss is such a nicer word. If you have them going in opposite directions, you will always get that perfect point. So I'm going to go ahead and make all of the quadrants just like this. And then I am going to press them at this point and then put them together. I'm just sewing the two halves together. I've pressed them already. And as you can see, I have them going, these are going up, these are going down. And so I've pressed them in the opposite direction. And what's really nice is if you just take it and slide it like that, and then put the points together, you'll get a perfect seam right in that middle. Now I always stop on the seam line so I can reposition. Let's do one more. Let's slide it right in. It really is kind of magical. Stop at the seam, reposition, put the points, hold this. This is important to hold it here so it doesn't drift or you don't stretch it and sew like that. Because you want to straight, non-stretchy, even though that is a bias. That's why you're sewing it in. So let's look. So here's our piece. And this is the point we're trying to nail, and look at that. I don't think you can get much better. Here, let's look at the other one. Just so you don't think it's a tricky camera action. See, look at that. They all fit like that, and all you have to do is just snug those seams together. I like to call them kissing. So you're making your quilt with love. Anyway, I'll continue this and then we'll sew the 4 quarters together. The 4 quadrants are sewn together. You can send me the 4 individual pieces, and I've laid them out in the way they need to be pieced. And then I'm going to sew them. You just need 4 for each, and you will turn them in the direction so that they're alternating colors. Just like that. And when I sew them together, I'm going to sew the block together at one time. I'm going to sew these 2 pieces together. And then I'm going to sew these 2 pieces together and have a seam down the middle. And then I'm going to do that to the rest of the block so that they're all somewhat sewn together, and it really helps me from not putting them in the wrong directions when I sew them in the other directions. Let's go sew 1 or 2 and we'll almost be finished. I always like to keep a copy of the assembled block nearby so I can refer to it, and it's just going to be out of camera range, but I'm going to watch it as I piece. My first thing is I'm going to take my 2 top pieces and match them up and flip it over. Now, if I've done my seams right, they should be going in opposite directions, which this one is. So this is perfect because it really helps you match them up. And let's just sew. Now, rather than sewing the next two, I'm going to go to the bottom two and sew it because that actually, it's a 4-patch block. And then this actually will complete the one block, and they will be sewn together so that when I go to do the other side, it'll be very difficult for me to sew them incorrectly. Now, I noticed on this, they're not going up. That's what happened. There we go. There we go. Now one's going up and one's going down. I had a feeling there was something funny going on over there. Let's just fix that. Okay, and I'm going to make sure this should be going up. And I will lay it down. Make sure it's going up. And then I can snug this one right into it. Match up the seams again. Now, it's kind of neat. You could keep sewing blocks together like this, but if you just do the two and you open it, you will see you already have your block laid out in the correct position, and all you have to do is flip it over, turn it, and you can sew the other side. And so again, I'm going to match up my pieces. I'm always matching up. I sew seam to seam. I don't sew end to end because the ends get eaten up by the seam allowance when you sew them together, and everyone always looks at your point. So I always stop, needle down on a seam, and I'm just trying to pick these up because I want to make sure these two seams go in opposite directions because I want to nail that point in the middle. Stop again at the seam down, needle down on the seam, match these 2 points up again, hold it in place, keep it from stretching, give it a little tug. And your Lemoyne Star Block is finished, and you've got great points all around. So let me finish the red ones, and then we'll talk about how to assemble the quilt. So the 2 blocks are finished, and for my test, I've only made a couple of red and a blue. For the pattern, the way I designed it, you need 27 red and white and 3 blue and white. Actually, my Quilts of Valor group just did one, and they put 4 blue ones in. So there's nothing wrong. You could do whatever you like. But the pattern is designed and written to use 4 blocks, 3 blocks in blue, and the 27 in red. What is different now we have to do is we have to add sashing. So I'm going to just do this corner with these 4 blocks with the sashing to show you how to lay them out. The first thing you have to do is sew a piece of sashing in the first row to 5 of the red and white blocks. So what it's going to look like when you put it together, pretty much. Now I just did 2. Okay, so there's my 2 blocks, and I've put white sashing in it. Here's the sashing, and every single one, you're going to do a block and the sashing, do a block, and add sashing. Okay, and that you'll do that 5 across, and that will be your row. The next row you have to do is a sashing row, and it's going to require you to use both the sashing strips and some blue squares that have to be sewn to either side, which then become the cornerstones. Now, I've sewn one piece together, and you start with a strip, cornerstone, strip, cornerstone, and you will match up the sashing and the cornerstones when you sew them together. The next row, according to my map, is going to be a red, then a blue. So I will take my next block, my red block, position it here. I will sew a sashing strip onto it. Then sew my blue block, and then I will continue putting 3 more red blocks with sashing in that row. And it's just as simple as that. Every block row has sashing in between. There are none at the ends. And there are 3 rows with a blue block. Now you can put the blue block anywhere you want. I've laid it out this way, and as I've said, you can do more or less if you like, but this is the way the pattern is designed. When you're done, you will then put borders on it. It's 2.5 inch width of fabric. You're going to put a blue border on it and white cornerstones. Quilt will finish at 58 and 69 inches, which is a perfect size for Quilts of Valor. And that's how easy it is to put together. So the pattern is red, white, and blue Lemoyne Star. Anyone can make a Quilts of Valor quilt. All you have to do is be able to sew a 1/4 inch seam and follow the directions to make any of the quilts. Go to quiltsofvalor.com if you're not sure. You can make blocks, you can make quilts. You can buy the pattern, and we donate 20% of all the proceeds to Quilts of Valor annually, so you'll still be helping them out. Even if you don't make a Quilts of Valor quilt for them, you make it for yourself or you give it to a veteran that you know. So if you'd like to purchase a copy, it's available on Etsy at my shop, Fontana Originals. The cost is $8, and 20% of the proceeds go back to Quilts of Valor annually. If you see a veteran, please thank him or her for their service. Happy quilting.